Hello and welcome back to the Stamperia Magic Forest mini album tutorial for ScrapNCreate. In this video we are going to begin decorating the cover of the album. I have 4 pieces of cardstock cut to 5 inches by 8 inches. These are going to be the photo mats for the pocket pages. I used my corner rounder on all 4 corners. Now you can do your mats one of 2 ways. I'm going to paper piece mine, but if you just want a single sheet of paper on the front and back, you'll need to cut 8 pieces of your paper that measure 4 3/4 by 7 3/4 and place 1 on each of these. However, I'm doing mine with a piece in the center for the photo and a small strip at the top and bottom that will have the decorative paper. So I've just taken 8 different papers that I could cut pieces big enough. Use whatever you want, but these are the pieces that we're going to be using. And I've cut these to 4 3/4 by 6 1/2. So I have this one, I have 2 of this one, this, 1 of these, and this is from the same paper. So we need 8 of these that measure 4 3/4 by 6 1/2. And then we need to have 8 pieces that measure 1 inch by 4 3/4 inch. Now what I'm going to do with these is round the corners before I cut them in half. It's just a little bit easier to do in my corner rounder. So I'm going to round all 4 of my corners. Then bring my paper trimmer in and cut these down so that they're 1/2 inch wide. And these are going to go on the top and the bottom of the mat. And then in the center will be one of the larger pieces. So I'm going to finish punching the corners and cutting these, and then I'm going to be adhering these on. Now the way that I had planned this is that I have some plainer colored papers, and then I have some of the teal paper. So I'm going to put 1 teal paper on each of the mats, and I'm going to flip them over and put some of these plain papers on, and then I'm going to match each of these to what looks best with my papers. So I will come back and show you the combinations once I've finished. Here are my photo mats completed. So next I'm going to place these in the pockets between the pages, just matching up the different colors of the paper with the designs on the pages to see what looks best. For the inside covers, I'm going to be using this piece here from the 12 by 12 paper, and I'm going to be using this side, but I'm actually going to be using the center section, so I'm going to be cutting this off. Now I want this key to be on the back inside cover, and I don't want to cut through it. So I am going to be cutting this down, and I'm just going to line this up with the edge of this kind of metal looking border piece. So I'm going to cut this here. And then I'm going to cut this to 8 1/4 inches. Now I'm going to start from this side, cutting a 5 1/4 inch piece. This will be for the back cover. Then next I'm going to cut a strip that's 3/8 of an inch. And another 3/8 inch strip. And then I'm going to cut this down to 5 1/4 inches. And I'm actually going to turn this around the other way so that I have more of that metal gear showing. On this piece for the front cover, I need to round my 2 left corners. And this one will go here. Then I have one of my 3/8 inch strips, and it is going to go here. Then my second 3/8 inch strip is going to go down here. And then for my back cover, I need to round the 2 corners on the right hand side and place this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere all of these pieces of paper down, then we'll come back and add just a little bit more to the inside. From the 12 by 12 paper, I cut these 2 pieces, and then I've also cut this strip from this part here. This was part of the 12 by 12 paper that we used to make the front and back inside covers. So I just cut this strip off, and then I cut this to 2 pieces that are 5 1/4 inches. Now I'm going to take one of these strips, and the Forest is Filled with Magic and Secrets piece, and I'm going to apply just the ends, and I'm going to adhere this into the center. That way, if there is a photo that goes on this page, it can tuck behind the band, or it can tuck underneath that little card there. Just some decoration, but then it's also room for a photo. So first, the ends of my piece here are going to be adhered right down to that paper, down towards the bottom. And then between this and this little dot on the strip, I'm going to apply my adhesive and place my cut apart right in the center. If you want to measure this to make it exact, you can, but I'm just going to eye mine and leave it at that. So now it is open that a photo or even a photo mat can slide into it. Then on the back, I'm going to add this one up here towards the top. Same thing, I'm going to put the band, but I'm going to place my Adventures in the Forest piece off to the side to offset this here. So first, starting with the sides, adding just a little bit of adhesive. And then for this one, it's going to be from here over to here. So now this one is also open that a photo can slide up underneath it, or you could place a photo mat there. So we've got those papers on, and next all we need to do is cut strips for the centers of these. So we're going to need to cut 3 pieces that measure 3/8 by 8 1/4, and I'm going to be using this 12 by 12 paper here on this side to do so. So now I have my strips of paper between my pages, and everything is decorated for the inside of the album. So the final thing we're going to do is begin decorating the front and the back covers, and we will be finished with the main construction of the album. For the front and back cover, we're going to be using this paper here from the 12 by 12. For the front cover, I'm going to use this part. The back cover, I'm going to use this part. So I'm going to cut this to 5 3/8 by 8 1/4 inches. This will be my front cover, so I'm going to round the right-hand corners. Now I'm going to be cutting this side to 5 3/8 by 8 1/4. And this will be this direction, and I need to round the two left-hand corners. So here's my front and here's my back cover. From the 8x8 paper, we're going to be using this page. And first we're going to be cutting 6 1/4 inches from the top. Now you want to make sure that you don't cut this piece here with the little Adventures in the Forest, because we're going to be fussy cutting that and putting it on the front cover. So I am just going to cut straight across at 6 1/4. So I've just missed that piece. Now from the left-hand side, we're going to cut 2 1/2 inches from the paper. Then we're going to cut this to 4 3/4 inches. So now we're left with a piece that's 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. We need a piece of cardstock that measures 5 1/2 by 6 1/2. I scored at 1/2 inch on the 5 1/2 inch side. We are going to go ahead and fold on this score line. Then we're going to use the corner rounder on both corners here. And we're going to use the corner rounder on the two left corners of this piece. Next, we need another piece of cardstock that measures 5 inches by 6 1/2 inches. Now I'm going to take my corner rounder and first round just the two left-hand corners. Then I'm going to cut this, so I'm going to have a 1/2 inch frame, just like we did on the inside pages. We just don't have those tabs. We're going to cut a 1/2 inch frame around the entire piece. So next we're going to take this piece and adhere it right on top of this paper. And then we're going to take the frame and adhere it right on top of this piece, lining up all of the edges. We're going to use this 12 by 12 paper. It's the same one that we used for the frames inside, except for it's the 12 by 12 instead of the 8 by 8. Now we're going to be cutting this way just like we did inside. And I'm going to be cutting 3 strips that measure 3/8 inch. From my pieces, I cut 2 pieces that measure 5 7/8 inch. So I'm going to place one here. The second one is going to go down here. So I need to round my bottom left-hand corner with my scissors. Then I have 2 pieces that measure 4 3/8 inch. So I'm going to place one down here. And this one is going to go up here. So I need to round the top left corner. So I'm going to go ahead and apply those down to complete that piece. I'm also going to cut a piece of this paper for the back of my flap. I'm going to cut it to 4 3/4 by 6 1/4 inches, and I'm going to use the corner rounder on the top and bottom right-hand corners, and I'll place that piece on the back of this page. Next, we need a piece of cardstock that measures 2 5/8 inch by 3 inches. On the 2 5/8 inch side, I scored it a 1/2 inch on each end. Now I'm going to fold on these score lines. This is going to create that channel for our band closure to slide through. So we're going to be placing this on the front of our album. Next, we need a piece of cardstock that measures 1.5 by 6 inches, scoring on the 6-inch side at 1.5 inches, and on the opposite side, rounding those 2 corners. We're going to fold on this score line. Then we need 2 pieces from the paper that we've been using to make our frames. This is from the 12 by 12. They measure 1.25 by 5 3/4, and we need to round the corners on 2 of the corners on each side. These pieces are going to go here and here. Taking the flap with the frame on it and the piece for the front, we're going to be flipping this over, and we're going to attach this to this paper. We're going to be attaching it to the side that has the rounded corners. So I marked mine already in the center. This flap is going to go in the center of my paper, but like this. So I'm actually going to be gluing the inside of this and attaching it here so that it becomes a flap that will open like this and be hidden by this paper. So how we're going to do this, placing your adhesive on the inside tab, not the outside tab, we're going to take this piece. Now this piece I'm going to make sure is in the right orientation. Going to flip it over this direction so that I can adhere it in the center. So once I have it stuck down, I'm going to flip it over. And now I'm going to make sure that it doesn't go past that score line. That way it will fold right over top of my page. Then I'm going to turn this over. I've already marked mine. I've marked in the center so that I know where I'm going to place this channel that my band, this is going to be my band closure, will slide through. So we're going to be placing this tabs down in the center. Before I do this, on one side, I want to miter my corners of my tabs. That will help that band to slide in a little bit easier. And when I place this on my page, I'm actually going to leave just a little tiny bit sticking out past the page so I know where that channel is. I don't want a lot, just a little teeny tiny bit so you can see it. It'll make it a little easier for it to line up. So what I'm going to do is add my adhesive to my 1/2 inch tabs on my channel. And then I'm going to center this first, then flip it over and place it just so a little tiny bit is sticking out. You won't really be able to see it once it's on the cover. Then I'm going to burnish this down. So then with my band, I'll be able to slide it in that channel. I'm going to take my bone folder and open that channel up just a little bit. That way, when this comes in here, it slides pretty easily. It's not too big that it's going to move around a lot, but it's just right to where there's a little bit of room for this piece to move. Next, I'm using a very small piece of cardstock. It measures about 3/8 of an inch by 1 1/4 inches. And then I also cut a scrap piece of the paper that we've been using for our frame. It's already 3/8 of an inch, so I just cut it to 1 1/4. Now I'm going to apply my adhesive and adhere this to the front of that little tiny chipboard piece. If you made your own cover out of chipboard, you might have some chipboard left over. If you don't have chipboard laying around, you can recycle a cracker box or a cereal box, because this is going to be covered, you won't see it. If you're using something like a cereal box or a cracker box, you'll probably want about 3 layers just to get this to be nice and thick. So once this piece is on here, it's going to be here right next to this. And why I'm doing this is I'm going to be using this key as a closure for my frame on the front. So it'll be decorative and there will be things around it, but this is going to be the closure. It's going to be a swing tab that'll swing and open. But because this has so many layers to it with the paper and there'll be a photo under it, I need this to be thicker so that if this is here, it doesn't bubble up like that. I don't think it'll hold as well. So I'm going to place my key in the center of this piece. So taking a piercing tool, I'm just going to pierce right in the center of my piece. Then I'm going to take my key and a brad. I'm going to slide my brad down through the hole in the key and then down through the chipboard. And I'm going to secure the prongs on the back side, press down to make sure that these are opened and flattened into place. So now we have that swing tab. I'm going to take my piece, apply my adhesive, and then I'm going to place this here, but on the center of the page. So I want to make sure that everything is centered. And I'm going to put it right at the edge of the paper. So there's a little small gap between that piece and the frame. And now I'll swing this closed so that when it's on the album, if I move it, it's not going to move. Now this piece is ready to be adhered to the front cover. So when I adhere this, I'm going to adhere it a little bit closer to these last cut lines on my hinge. That way I have a uniform border around the top, the right side, and the bottom. Next, I'm going to take my band. I put my papers on it, so I rescored at 1.5 inches. Then I rescored this all the way up to a certain point at 3/4 of an inch. So I have it at 1.5, 2 1/4, 3 inches, 3 3/4, and 4.5. Next, I'm going to fold on these score lines. Just to create this bend so that when it's on the book, it will curve, and then it's expandable so that when the photos are added, there's more room to slide this in and out of the closure we made. So I'm just going to leave it like this. I'm not going to score it super flat. I'm just going to leave it how that is. Then I'm going to take my back cover piece, I'm going to mark this in the center where I'm going to be placing my closure. So now this, I'm going to add adhesive all along this piece, and I'm going to adhere this 1/8 of an inch from the edge because we want this to have a border around it. So I have measured from my first score line 1/8 of an inch in, and that's where I'm going to place my paper. So on the inside of my closure piece, I'm going to add my adhesive. Then finding those marks where the center is, and then lining it up with my 1/8 inch marks on the band. I'm going to adhere this down. Next, I'm going to measure a 1/2 inch in and a 1/2 inch down, and I'm going to pierce a hole. Half inch up, 1/2 inch over, pierce another hole. Half inch up, 1/2 inch over, pierce another hole. And then a 1/2 inch up and a 1/2 inch down and a 1/2 inch over, and pierce a 4th hole. Then I'm going to insert 4 brads in here and secure the prongs on the back side. This is actually purely decorative. It will strengthen the band, but it's not necessary. So if you don't want to place brads here, you absolutely do not have to do that, and your band being glued on will be just fine. Now that I have my piece attached with the band, I'm going to add my adhesive and adhere to my front cover. So there should be an 1/8 inch border around the top, the bottom, and the left-hand side. So now that the back cover is complete, we can go ahead and flip over and then insert the band into our channel. And there it is closed. But when we have photos and other things and it expands, the band will allow this to still close while that hinge is flexible to allow the cover to expand. I fussy cut the Adventures in the Forest from that 8x8 paper from this here. Then I backed it onto cardstock. And I have a piece of chipboard that's a little bit smaller than the piece that I'm going to use to give this piece just a little bit of dimension. Again, if you made your covers out of chipboard, you will probably have some leftover pieces that you can use for this. But if you don't have chipboard, you can always use that cereal box or cracker box. Just layer up a couple of layers so that you have a nice firm piece, but also some good dimension. Next, I'm going to add my adhesive to the back of the chipboard. And then I'm going to adhere this to the top of my frame section. So I took my leaf from the ephemera assortment and fussy cut it, put it on cardstock and fussy cut around it. Then I'm going to take my leaf piece and I'm going to adhere it back here behind my title piece. Now I'm only going to be adhering a little bit at the bottom on both sides because the whole entire thing isn't going to fit on here. So I'm just going to place it there, and then I'm going to release my front cover. You want to make sure that this is on the page so that it will close still too. So when this goes like this, or is open, I'm sorry, we want it to open. So we need to make sure that it opens smoothly. Next, I have my metal gear that was in the pack of metal pieces that I got from ScrapNCreate from the paper. I'm going to attach it right over the gear on top of my little title for my album. So I'm just using some 3D gloss gel. It's just good to put embellishments on. If you have mixed media products that you like to use, make sure that you use something heavy duty. Glossy accents can be helpful here too. E6000. Just want to use something that you know is going to keep this metal adhered down. So I'm just going to place it right on top of the metal gear, or the gear that's on the Adventures in the Forest piece. From the 49 in Market flower pack, there's a set of flowers that look like this, and they have these little tiny buds and the leaf also attached. I pulled them apart because I just wanted the little buds and the leaf. I put it down through the little loop in the heart-shaped lock piece. This came from ScrapNCreate as well. Now I'm going to put some of my adhesive down in here to adhere my flower stems into the metal. And then I'm also going to be adhering the metal piece to the book. So I'm going to be placing adhesive around the metal piece. Just putting some tacky glue on the back of the leaves and the buds. And I'm going to place this piece down here. Next, I have one of my little sprigs of flowers. I fanned them out a little bit. I have my larger flower that I'm going to place over top of this, and then I'm going to cut that stem so that it's not sticking out past my flower. I'm going to arrange all of my flowers on here first, and then I will start gluing them down after I have them the way that I like them. I'm going to use this bud stem as well, cutting this down. And then I'm going to use this one and I'm going to place it here. So I may cut this stem down even further, depending on how it looks on the page. And now that I have a general idea where my flowers are going to go, I'm going to place them down. Now the first one I'm going to place down is this one. So I'm just going to add my adhesive. Then I'm going to remove the spray and put some adhesive on those stems and also on the back sides. And I'm going to place it back here behind my flower and fan them out a little bit. I'm going to remove the adhesive from the back of those because I forgot they're going to be sticking up in the air. Next, I'm going to place my adhesive on my smaller open flower. And I'm going to place this just above my key. But I have to be careful where I place it. I don't want it to be glued down to that chipboard piece with the key on it, because I want everything to be able to move. When this piece lifts up, all of this will move with it. And then on this one, I'm going to place my adhesive in the center and on the bottom of this one because it will be attached to that page. Then I'm going to lift this and just press everything down so I know it's adhered to this and not to the actual album cover. I'm going to let all of the elements on my cover dry, and then we'll come back and see if we're finished or if we're going to add anything else. I did add one extra thing. So inside of here, I fussy cut the piece from the 8x8 paper, and I put one of the ephemeral leaves behind it. Then this is blank, so you could place a photo here as well as here if you wanted. I just love this paper though. I just thought it was pretty, so I didn't want to cover that. And then one final thing I did to the band, I took this and in these 3/4 inch pieces, I just slightly curved them a little bit with my fingers. I didn't do it to this end piece. I want this piece to be flat, but I'm curving these other pieces just a little bit so that it actually bends a little bit easier. And it will fold a little bit easier into there so that it's a little bit more rounded rather than being boxy. So this is the Magic Forest mini album. You can leave it like this if you choose to do so. It is completely finished, but if you want to make your book over the top, you can look at the next video where I'm going to add some additional embellishments on the inside pages. Now, if you watched the supply list video after making the base pages, we made all of these leaves with Mod Podge to make them stronger. I'm going to begin adding these into the inside of my book. So if you want to do that, you can join me in the next video for the tutorial. It'll be the final video, and then I'll do a flip through video which will be completely separate. But like I said, if you just want to leave your book like this, it is fully decorated and fully functional. If you are finishing here, thank you so much for joining me in the tutorial series. Don't forget to head over to ScrapNCreate.com to pick up all of the Magic Forest papers if you are just joining us and want to make this mini album. Everything that I've used will be linked in the description box below.